The Saiyans of Universe 6 continued their battles across the arena. Caulifla and Kava were pursuing the weakened Napapa and Makeup, attempting to finish them before they could recover. At the same time, Kale remained locked in a fierce one-on-one battle against a heavily powered up Murisam. Their fight had become a brutal and straightforward confrontation, focused almost entirely on close quarters combat. Murisam held the advantage in martial arts skill and experience. His movements were precise and disciplined, allowing him to redirect and block many of Kale's strongest blows. He also managed to land occasional feints and low kicks, dealing small but consistent damage. But Kale more than compensated for it with raw battle instinct and sheer strength. Her fighting style had become increasingly feral. Fueled by a growing frenzy, she ignored nearly all pain from Murisam's attacks, responding with devastating ki-enhanced strikes that Murisam barely managed to evade. Despite his mastery of martial arts, fighting Kale did not feel like facing another trained warrior. It felt more like trying to survive against an unstoppable beast. Little by little, Murisam began to feel the pressure. Meanwhile, Kale herself was struggling with something even more dangerous. Since the fight had begun, she had been slowly losing control of her rage. However, considering the strength of the opponent standing before her, holding back simply wasn't an option. Seeking a brief moment to recover from Kale's relentless assault, Murisam jumped back and unleashed a barrage of ki blasts with rapid punches. However, the attacks were too weak to break Kale's defense. The Saiyan simply ran straight through the explosions without slowing down. But it was just a distraction. Murisam, with a powerful kick, he launched a concentrated ki wave directly at the approaching Saiyan. This time, Kale was forced to respond. Opening her mouth, she released a powerful ki beam of her own, colliding with Murisam's attack in mid-air. For a moment, the two waves struggled against each other, but Murisam's attack proved stronger. His ki wave overwhelmed Kale's blast and struck her directly, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed her completely. For a few moments, the battlefield fell silent. As the dust slowly settled, Murisam stepped back, taking advantage of the brief pause to recover his breath and stamina. But suddenly, he felt something terrifying. A surge of energy erupted from within the smoke. Kale emerged from the explosion, transformed. Her body had grown more imposing and muscular, her aura filled with rage. Her eyes had turned completely blank, and her expression no longer resembled that of a person. It looked more like the face of a wild beast. The raw rage radiating from her ki sent a chill through Murisam. For the first time in the fight, he felt genuine intimidation. Still, he raised his guard. Kale moved first. Opening her mouth, she fired a massive ki beam directly at him. Murisam barely managed to escape the blast as Kale continued sweeping the beam across the battlefield, trying to catch him. Sensing an opportunity, Murisam suddenly closed the distance and launched a powerful ki-enhanced punch. But instead of striking Kale's body, his fist collided with a dense energy barrier surrounding her. The impact triggered a violent explosion that blasted Murisam backward. The shockwave tore through his arm, leaving it badly injured and nearly useless. For a split second, Murisam considered retreating, but his pride as a warrior refused to allow it. He steadied himself and prepared to fight again. Unfortunately, Kale was already upon him. She lunged forward, attempting to grab him. Murisam narrowly dodged and counter-attacked with a sharp kick to her face. But the Berserk Saiyan didn't even react to the pain. Instead, she immediately countered with a devastating punch that struck Murisam directly in the face, sending him flying backward through the air. Before his body got away from her grasp, Kale grabbed his leg. Then, with overwhelming strength, she slammed him into the ground, again and again and again. Each impact struck with such force that even the nearly indestructible floor of the arena began to crack and shatter beneath them. After the brutal exchange, Murisam lay barely conscious on the shattered arena floor. His body was badly wounded, unable to move. Kale stepped forward and planted her foot firmly on his chest, pinning him down completely with sheer strength. Slowly, she began gathering energy into one of her hands. Murisam struggled to speak. You were too strong," he muttered weakly. "I'm sorry, my friends." Before he could even finish his sentence, the Berserk Saiyan unleashed her attack. At point-blank range, Kale fired a devastating blast of ki directly into Murisam's body. The explosion that followed was great, completely engulfing the warrior of Universe 10. When the smoke cleared, there was a lifeless husk. Murisam had been eliminated. It was a brutal and devastating loss for Team Universe 10. But despite destroying her opponent, Kale's uncontrollable rampage was far from over. Not too far away, Kava and Caulifla had finally caught up to Napapa, who continued resisting them with the support of Makeup. Even with Makeup's assistance, the two warriors from Universe 10 were steadily being overwhelmed by the Saiyan duo. Realizing the situation was becoming desperate, Napapa prepared to unleash his ultimate technique once again, increasing the density of his body to extreme levels. But before he could activate it, both sides suddenly felt a terrifying surge of energy. A violent, rage-filled ki spread across the battlefield. "Kale?" Caulifla said immediately, recognizing the familiar energy. "She must have lost control of her power again," Kava added with concern. "Maybe we should go back and calm her down before she starts attacking our own team." "Oh, she's the one coming," Caulifla replied. Behind them, Kale was rapidly approaching at incredible speed, her aura raging wildly with no sign of slowing down. "Kale!" Caulifla shot, trying to reach her, but the Berserk Saiyan ignored her completely. She flew past both Saiyans and headed straight for Napapa. Seeing the threat approaching, the Universe 10 Sumo Warrior immediately activated his technique. His body began releasing the same black hole-like force he had used earlier, but this time it was far more powerful because of Makeup. The gravitational field around Napapa intensified dramatically. However, the Kale charging toward him was no longer the same opponent he had faced before. She landed directly in front of him. Napapa concentrated the crushing gravitational pull of his technique entirely on her body, attempting to tear her apart under the immense pressure, but the effect was minimal. Kale barely reacted. The force that could crush most warriors only managed to cause minor damage. Realizing what was about to happen, Napapa sent one final telepathic message to his ally: "Escape." Inside his body, Makeup instinctively reacted. Without hesitation, he separated from Napapa, and merged into the arena floor, disappearing just moments before Kale launched herself forward. Napapa didn't even have time to react. In an instant, Kale grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the ground, squeezing with overwhelming strength. The sumo warrior struggled desperately, trying to pry her hand away, but his arms were nowhere near strong enough to break her grip. Even his limitless density could not harm her. Realizing there was no escape, Napapa made a final decision. If he was going to be eliminated, he would take the Saiyan with him. Gathering the last of his vital strength, the greatest sumo warrior of Universe 10 poured all of his remaining life force into one final attack. His density increased far beyond its natural limits. The gravitational field surrounding him intensified dramatically, forming a massive black hole-like force, several times stronger than before. Napapa's own body was immediately consumed by the overwhelming power of the technique, and Kale was standing directly at its center. Seeing the catastrophic force forming, Caulifla rushed forward to help her sister, but Kava quickly grabbed her and pulled her back. The gravitational pull was growing too powerful. If they stayed any closer, they would be dragged in as well. For several tense moments, the two Saiyans could only watch from a distance as the overwhelming gravitational storm raged across. Then slowly, the super black hole began to fade. When the distortion finally vanished, the battlefield became visible again. And there, standing at the center of the destruction, was Kale. Her body had taken noticeable damage, but despite everything, she was still standing. Caulifla quickly rushed toward Kale, with Kava following closely behind, worried about what might happen next. "Sis?" Caulifla called out, but Kale gave no response. Caulifla stepped closer, too close. Suddenly, Kale turned sharply and swung her arm toward her, stopping just short of striking. The motion was clearly a warning. If Caulifla approached again, she would attack. "What are you doing, Kale?" Caulifla shoot. "Snap out of it already, so we can go fight the others together." She tried to break through Kale's rage the only way she knew how. Kale remained silent, carefully watching Kale's movements, ready to react if she made any sudden attack. The Berserk Saiyan slowly turned her head and locked eyes with Caulifla. Her face was twisted with pure fury. Her body had grown even larger and more monstrous than before. For a brief moment, Kava almost mistook her for an entirely different creature. Seeing no response, Caulifla tried approaching her again, but this time Kale reacted. A colossal surge of ki erupted from her body, blasting both Caulifla and Kava backward with sheer force. Without another word, Kale suddenly launched herself into the sky and sped off toward another part of the battlefield. "Kale!" Caulifla shot again as she immediately chased after her. Kava followed her right behind. "It's not a good idea to get too close to her right now, Caulifla," Kava warned while flying beside her. "You saw her," Caulifla shot back. "She didn't attack us like last time. She's clearly targeting our enemies. She's still on our side. Maybe she held back because she knows us most," Kava replied. "But we don't know what she will do to the rest of our team. For all we know, she might attack one of them next." "If that happens, I will stop her myself," Caulifla said. Then she glanced at Kava. "Are you with me or not?" "Of course I am," Kava answered. Deep down, Kava knew this situation wasn't truly Kale's fault. If anything, the blame rested with their god of destruction. who had pushed Kale to focus only on increasing her strength instead of teaching her how to properly control her emotions. But the mistakes had already been made. Now they had no choice but to deal with the consequences. Kale's speed far surpassed both Caulifla and Kava. She reached her destination much sooner, landing directly in the middle of the battle between Mayeta and Retold. The sudden interruption forced both fighters to stop. Retold barely managed to recognize the Saiyan. She was one of the warriors Murisam and the others had been fighting. If she was here now, what had happened to the rest of his teammates? Before he could even ask the question, Kale attacked. Without warning, she fired a powerful ki blast straight at him. Retold raised his guard and blocked the attack, but the force of the blast pushed him backward across the arena floor. Mayeta walked toward the Saiyan, letting out a series of metallic sounds, his way of thanking her for intervening. But his gratitude was met with something unexpected. Kale suddenly turned and attacked him as well. The blow struck Mayeta directly. Although not damaged physically, Mayeta was left both confused and hurt by being attacked by an ally. Lowering his guard in surprise, he failed to react as Kale fired another blast, sending the massive warrior crashing away. Kale then began roaring as waves of energy burst from her body. To anyone watching, it looked like a challenge, a declaration of battle. At that moment, Retold reappeared, having quickly recovered from her earlier attack. Hey, you were the one who eliminated Murisam and Napapa, weren't you? He said. Kale turned her gaze toward him. Even in her berserk state, she recognized him as a dangerous opponent. You're nothing but a wild beast blinded by rage, Retold said calmly. I will personally teach you something. True power is only achieved when you learn to control your fury. He slowly walked toward her. Unlike Kale's chaotic rage, Retold's ki burned with something colder, controlled anger, sharpened by discipline and experience. I will avenge you, Murisam, Napapa. I will defeat her. Retold stood defiantly before the towering Saiyan. Kale answered with a punch straight to his face. The impact left Retold's face bloodied, but he did not fall. Instead, he responded instantly. With a powerful uppercut, Retold struck Kale directly in the shin, forcing the massive Saiyan to stumble backward from the blow. For the first time since her rampage began, the Berserk warrior had encountered a true challenge.